Hi, I'm Cailey, a librarian here at Mentor Public Library.
And I'm Meg, also a librarian, and welcome to this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg, where each time we give you different book recommendations on a specific theme. Today, Cailey and I are going to be looking at books to de-stress. So this time of year with the holidays coming up, it can be very fast-paced. So we wanted to look at some books that help us calm down and maybe relax more, if we can.
Yes, a tall order this time of year. And all of the books that we're going to talk about today are available for you here at the library, as well as online with your library card through Libby and Hoopla.
All right, Cailey, what is your first relaxing book?
Okay, so sometimes when I need to de-stress, I like to turn to an old favorite. I feel like there's just something calming about reading a story that you know exactly what's going to happen, but you still appreciate jumping into those character lives. And some of those classics really do fulfill this for me, like Pride and Prejudice and Little Women, but I've already talked about those on here. So let me talk about one of my very favorites, Attachments by Rainbow Rowell. I've lost track of how many times I think I have read this book. Goodreads tells me that it's 4, but I think it's more like 7 or 8. But anyway, let me tell you, this is delightful. And I picked this book up to de-stress, and I've already read it once this year, and there's a chance there might be a second time coming. So the year is 1999, and Lincoln has recently accepted a job in the IT office of a Nebraska newspaper. The job's pretty simple for him, but the night shift kind of bites. And his job is to enforce the inter-office email rules. So 1999, email still relatively new to a lot of places. And the paper has installed this tracking software for their inter-office emails to make sure that their staff are staying on track and are not sending inappropriate material or jokes or things like that to each other. Relatively common in the 90s, early aughts, I guess. So it flags inappropriate words, and Lincoln's job is to look over these emails at the end of the day and send warnings to the people who have sent them. Okay, so I know this doesn't sound incredible yet, but I'm getting to it. But in doing his job, he often sees emails between these two women, Beth and Jennifer, who both work for the paper and who are never really writing about work to one another, except a lot of their emails are really funny and heartfelt, and he sort of becomes invested in their exchanges. He's not warning them the way that he should be and how he has been other people, mostly because he's kind of interested to see what's going on in their lives and what funny thing they're going to talk about now. And specifically, he is drawn more and more to Beth, who, although he's never met, he starts to feel something for just from her email exchanges. But you know, what can come of this when this relationship starts in a very odd way, and he also has still never seen her. So what's great about this book is that it is really awkward at times. And I say that, having read this book many times, I appreciate the awkwardness because real life is not always pretty and easy and simple. Sometimes things happen that are just really awkward and hard to deal with. And I love that this author goes head on into those. A lot of the book is told in the email exchanges. So you're basically reading exactly what Lincoln's reading. And I love that too, because you get a lot of that pithy back and forth between the two women. But you also learn more about Lincoln's life and, you know, how reading about their lives makes him realize that he needs to start making some changes in his own life. It's time for him to grow up, him to move on and, you know, start living his life, which he feels like he's sort of been sleepwalking through at this point. And it's just so sweet and fun. And like I said, I've lost track of how many times I've read it.
Sounds so great. it's in that great tradition of like cozy romantic stories told like with letters or like, emails. It's like you got mail. It's kind of just very sweet, quirky. Love the awkwardness. I know that all too well, that feel those awkward moments, so I just think it sounds adorable and a perfect way to just relax.
Exactly. Nice book to really like forget about everything and just sort of calm down and then dive into this story.
Right. You've definitely sold me. I got to check that one out. So my relaxing book. So Cailey, you and I are adults, I suppose, right?
Most days.
Most days. But sometimes the most relaxing book you can read is essentially a picture book. And this book is called Calm: Interiors to Nurture, Relax, and Restore by Sally Denning. So essentially, it's technically an interior design book about how to create relaxing space. But I say if you just sit on an afternoon with a hot beverage, a blanket, and you look at this gorgeous book with these gorgeous pictures filled with refreshing natural light and tranquil settings, you're going to just be in a calm mood within an hour, is my belief. It's that good. So the beginning of the book, author Sally Denning explores the essential foundations of creating a serene, comforting home, from calming and harmonious color combinations, textiles, patterns, lighting, and decorative elements. So definitely while you're relaxing, you can also learn a thing or two, maybe be inspired for how to make your living room or your bedroom, kitchen, whatever it may be, just a more relaxing place to be in. But aside from that, there's just so many gorgeous pictures, and not just of the same sort of location. So there's city homes, country houses, apartments, even beach houses. So there's some gorgeous pictures that show a beautiful room with like a view of the sea. It just takes you to another place, and that's what I love about this book. And whatever your personal style is. So, say maybe you're thinking, okay, I wouldn't maybe do that exactly. I think just the nature of seeing these pictures is going to put you in a great headspace, in my opinion. You're going to feel like you've gone to a book spa, is the way I would put it. So I just think it's an inspirational read, and it's one you don't have to stress out, to de-stress. You don't have to like read the whole thing in one sitting. You can just take your time with it at your own pace.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, we talk about going to like our safe spaces and, a place where you can go home at the end of the day and de-stress. And so that's good inspiration for trying to make your home that de-stress zone for you. And, I'm addicted to HGTV, so I would appreciate a book like that too. It's just
right. Exactly.
Okay, so my next book is really more of a self-help book than the others that we've talked about. It's called Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily and Amelia Nagoski. And I think in the year 2022, we can all say that we have heard a lot about burnout. In this post-pandemic world, it feels like everyone has suffered from it or, may still be having problems with burnout. And this book was actually released in 2019. So, pre-pandemic, but the advice in here is just extremely relevant. The authors are actually sisters, and they focus specifically on women experiencing burnout. So this is directed at women, but certainly has advice that can be relevant for anyone. So they discuss the causes and how to understand it. They talk about the biology of stress, how to hone in on the stress cycle and how to get yourself out of that cycle and not just keep repeating it. They talk a lot about mindfulness and self-awareness, which I think is a really big factor in trying to help yourself de-stress in life. You have to identify your stress triggers and figure out how to manage them. And sometimes you can't really get rid of them. You just have to figure out how to deal with them. There's this huge movement right now that we've all heard about with regard to self-care. And I think the authors do explore that a lot, but they also emphasize self-compassion, which I think is a really great way to say that, like, it's okay. You give yourself permission to feel this stress, but you can also work through it. And, you have to be kind to yourself. It's a big part of trying to get yourself to get into a good headspace here. I appreciated the author's conversational tone throughout this book. It doesn't get too doctory, but it feels like they really want you to understand what is going on and how to make it make sense in your world. Anytime advice is backed up with that explanation of like, here's why this is good for you, I think I'm much more likely to take notice versus someone just telling me, here's what you should do without telling me why. I like the why. So a big part of that in this, it talks a lot about how physical movement and exercise can really help you de-stress, but they really explain from the biology level, like why this is actually a good benefit for you to help de-stress. So it's a useful title to try to work through some of that burnout you may be feeling, especially as we get closer to the holidays and, there's just all the different things hitting us at once.
Absolutely. And I love the idea of reading a book like that, because when you're maybe stressed out or burned out, like maybe you need to start thinking better or doing these practices of, taking care of yourself and what have you, but having another voice, so to speak, through a book, reminding you and telling you, to do these things, almost like cheering you on in a sense, like, these are things you need to do. I think it's a great inspiration, especially like you said, at this time of year when so many things can be going on and craziness. So I love it. So my last de-stressing book is called A Paris Year, My Day-to-Day Adventures in the Most Romantic City in the World by Janice McLeod. Now, the reason I chose this one is, books are often admired for being able to transport the reader. We say, we feel like we say that all the time, like how it can take you to another place. But this one it just feels especially so in that manner, because when you really travel, it actually can be very stressful. You got the long security lines at the airport, you got a long plane ride, potentially, all these plans that can be upended by different circumstances. So I advise you, if you want to relax, travel, quote unquote, to a wonderful place. And what better place, more relaxing than a wonderful Parisian bistros and things like that. It's just lovely. And the way this book is set up is it's almost like a daily journal of this author's year in Paris. She's an artist as well. So each day she'll write like a little thing about what she did or what she discovered, and then draw like this really pretty watercolor type painting describing it. So really getting in, kind of like what you were saying about mindfulness in your last one, she really kind of like slows down and focuses on like the taste she's experiencing with the new food she's trying, the sights she's seeing. She just really breaks it down in a way that's very peaceful. And I like that it's, you don't have to follow this intricate narrative. It's just very her observations, just kind of the things she's experiencing. And then she also gets a very light touch into some Parisian history and things. So you're learning a few new trivias and facts as well along the way. But just another one that's not a very demanding read. There's a lot of pretty imagery and things to go along with it. And it's a place I've never been, but I've always been, enchanted by, studied French in high school and all that. I think you too. So it just is a perfect way for me personally, I think, other people to just relax.
Well, I love all things French, so I am surprised I haven't read this one. I did go to Paris, but it was years and years ago. So this sounds like a perfect one for me to curl up with on a cold afternoon and just sort of dive in and relax with. Nice cup of tea, maybe. I love that.
Yeah, me too. It's a consensus, so that means you have to as well. You have to get it. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this edition of All Booked Up. We hope you found these relaxing ideas. So maybe if you're, need to slow down a little bit, get one of these books and just enjoy the season.
Yes, take a moment to de-stress, whether that's with one of these books or another. We'll forgive you. And we'll see you next time. Happy reading.